So I stumbled upon this interesting paper and this even more interesting publisher after looking for some estimates for Hubble's constant for my dissertation. I kind of laughed a little, but I was also quite sad to see that this publisher, which allegedly prides itself on being, peer-reviewed and publishing high-quality papers, is a scam. Allegedly, of course. Anyway, so today I wanted to share with you some very interesting papers that I found, and I thought we could all have a little laugh, but also sort of learn about predatory journals and publishers as well. If I can find the link that I used before, I'll link to a list of journals and publishers to look out for as well. Right, so I've blocked out the names and some of the personal details of these because I don't want people going along and, harassing people, although I don't really have the sort of audience size for that, but still, let's be nice and civil, of course. And actually, in one of the cases, some person who clearly isn't affiliated with a university actually put their home address in, and of course I don't want to show that. So we are keeping things as anonymous as possible, so I have blocked out everything that has personal information with a red rectangle. So we're going to start off with this interesting paper that I came across first, called The Results of Hubble's Law Using the Rohr Methodology. ROR. I actually can't remember what. I think it was regressive objective regression, which I haven't actually used before, but thought this is an interesting article. But the abstract was what really wowed me. So I've zoomed in a little bit and I'm just having a look at the abstract itself. So what really occurred to me at first was that there were a lot of phrases, sentences, and just general sort of bits of the paper that, had it been peer-reviewed, I think would have been, rephrased or even removed entirely. This first sentence as well is a little bit wordy, and I don't think it's actually really saying anything. But, moving aside from that, let's actually have a look at the estimate that they got. So they found the best estimate of the Hubble constant is I equals 1/0. A crystasol, classically I is approximately 1,000 per megaparsec kilometers per second, which I've never seen that formatting of the units of Hubble's constant. What result is this? This is a really interesting result. So it's definitely nowhere near a lot of the general consensus, which is somewhere between, I guess, 67 and I think 75, a lot of the more recent estimates, and that depends on if it's CMB measurements, supernovae, or indeed black hole mergers, which is a new thing. Another thing that really caught my eye is this I equals 1/0, which is apparently equal to 1,000. I don't think I really need to talk about that much. But also what was interesting is that he said that this is a crystosol. And I've never really heard of what that is, and when I searched it up, the only thing that actually came up that was of use, relevant to this actual paper itself, was another paper by the author as well, so that was weird. And he doesn't actually cite what this crystosol is, and usually if this would be a peer-reviewed paper, you would have a reference to something that is not commonly known within, the field itself. So on the introduction itself, one thing that actually caught my eye really quickly was the referencing. I've never seen this sort of formatting before, because usually you have the name and the date of the publishing, of the published paper, or you'd have the actual, just the number of the reference itself, and never both of them together. So that's something that would have been, corrected with peer reviewing, hopefully, as well, but it seems to have not been done here. Another thing which really struck me with this introduction is, if I've even read it correctly, that Hubble's constant isn't actually mentioned at all. So if I scroll down over here as well, we go down to, we see Hubble's law over here in this bit. But apart from that, it's not actually mentioned. There's no sort of, no part of the introduction actually talks about maybe previous estimates and what the general consensus is, which I think would actually be quite an important part, because, even with my own dissertation, one big part of my introduction is talking about the current estimates and the different methods, because for my dissertation I'm talking about using a new method, such as, what this paper is meant to be doing, and yet somehow they've decided to just not look at any actual work to, quantify the Hubble's constant. I'm really confused by this. Also, with a lot of the actual introduction itself, it's very sort of well, that nothing's actually being said apart from the fact that, you know, data analysis can get us results, essentially. You know, we're talking about, you know, repetitive sentences, essentially. Okay, yeah, once again, we've got the same referencing style. At least it's consistent. I'll give them that for sure. And then we don't actually talk about the method at all, because they do say that this ROR methodology, I can't say that, raw methodology is going to be, you know, expanded upon, but they don't actually do it in the materials and methods, and I don't think the word materials is the right word for this, in my personal opinion. So that's interesting. I would have ideally put, you know, how you're actually doing the analysis in the methods, but never mind. And then we go straight to results and discussion, where we have, this was interesting, we had V equals H0 multiplied by D over here, but then in the second bit they rearranged it, so it's D equals 1 over HV. However, that's not what I got when I rearranged it. When I rearranged it, I got D equals, you know, V over H. But why has V been put on the denominator? I'm a little bit confused by that. What they could have done is they could have just omitted the brackets by accident. Once again, this would have been caught in a proper peer review process. So you would have D equals brackets 1 over H multiplied by V, which would then be correct. But they did not have that. And then in the second paragraph, they misspelled Hubble. It says Hubble's law over here, which, yeah. Oh, no, okay, in here, in table 3, it does specifically say D equals 1 over H multiplied by V. Although they still could have missed the brackets, I don't know, but I don't know, it's not looking too good. And then, of course, we have the tables, which are a little bit poorly explained. Well, they're not really explained that much, if I'm going to be honest. I mean, we do have the little superscript over here, which, you know, does help a little bit, but it's not exactly well explained, which, I don't know, not great. I couldn't really follow through with what they were doing. I know they're doing regressional analysis, but I just wouldn't be able to, you know, replicate what they've been doing. Also, they never actually mention what ANOVA is as well. You would explain what that is, ideally, if you were publishing a paper. And this comes up to the second bit that I was going to talk about, and that is the graphs which are in Spanish. Ideally, if you're publishing a paper, you publish it all in one language, so if you want to publish it in multiple languages, you've got to make sure that each paper, it is entirely in English or entirely in Spanish, but clearly they haven't done that here. Also, I think what they've done is they fit a Gaussian onto this. They haven't actually explained if they have, or maybe I've misread it. Let's see if they've done that. It doesn't actually say. Okay, doesn't say. Great. So I'm going to assume that this is a bell curve, but the actual data point, the number of data points they've got are 24. Personally, I don't think that's enough to be able to fit a Gaussian. You'd need a higher population to do that, or a higher sample, sorry, in this case, to do that. Clearly, I mean, you can't actually see the curve with the amount of data points that they have, so I don't think that's appropriate. And then once again, we've got another bell curve, which I think in this case is a little bit more inappropriate. So we go down here, and yeah, there's not really much explanation as to what these graphs are, apart from the models. It says which model it is, but the graphs are also really blurry. So what can we really learn from this paper? Well, clearly peer review has either been done very poorly, if it even has been done, which I personally don't think it has. Trying to save my own face here. There's been poor translation, of course. A lot of the graphs are still in Spanish or Portuguese when they should be in English. Things haven't quite been proofread. You can see that with the Hubble's law, and the results are in stark contrast with every other result that I've found. Even the first result where Hubble actually got the distances wrong and got 500 kilometers per second per megaparsec, we've got double that here. So clearly we're going against the grain here, and there's no sort of discussion as to either why that is and, you know, any reason as to why their result is more valid than the others. And that's a real shame, because, you know, that would have been a really important part of the paper, but it's not been done. So yeah, that was the interesting paper that I found. I did actually go through the rest of this journal, just this specific journal that they've got, and some other ones as well. And I found some even more interesting papers. Now, this next one I found was on gravity in space. The first thing that I found that was interesting was in the abstract, in the keywords bit, we have cosmogony or cosmogony. And at that point, you could say that you're a flat earther and I'd take you just as seriously. So I'm not really going to go into much detail with this one. I mean, it's the same standard as before. It's actually a little bit better, if I'm going to be honest. They actually reference things really nicely. They've got the nice little, just one type of reference here. So I thought that was pretty good. The introduction's quite nice, actually, and it's laid out really well. Oh dear. I see the word ether in here. Oh dear. Okay. I'm sorry. This is so funny. Yeah, so I won't go into too much detail. We've got the Navier-Stokes equations here. It's quite a lot. So we go from 0 to 100 in this paper very quickly, but that's kind of expected with a lot of high-end papers anyway. Yeah, here this graph was quite interesting because I don't actually know what's going on. If you can figure it out, please let me know. Yeah, I mean, it's cosmogony, but what more can you expect with this? So the fact of the matter is that this publisher is publishing cosmogony and very outlandish results for Hubble's constant. Kind of looks bad on the publisher, is what I'm trying to say. No acknowledgements, conflicts of interest, but the actual referencing is pretty good up until, I guess, the 13th or 14th point. No, even less than that. No, definitely up to the 7th. So the referencing for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6, oh, and 7 definitely too, is okay. But then with the rest of these, there's actually no sort of information. There's not enough information for you to actually get to what they were referencing, apart from 13 as well. Also, the conclusion I found was quite interesting because, you know, he's talking about the ether, which we've already debunked. So the next paper I found was, it's not a paper, it's an opinion piece. You can see that over here, it says opinion. And it's on the Bermuda Triangle. It's a little bit more chemistry than physics, so I don't actually know what's being said. But I'm going to go easy on this one, and specifically because, you know, with this person who published it, they've got their personal, you know, their name, and then also their private address, which, you know, no wonder of course I'm going to anonymize that. So clearly this person's not an actual researcher affiliated with the university, they're just doing it for fun. And when I did look at the address, it actually was to a care home. So clearly this was just an old gentleman just having some fun in his spare time. And I think what was really sad is that in the next paper that we see that's actually been retracted, the researcher that had published it as a joke, of course, because he realizes this publisher is just terrible, he was actually asked to pay £1,000 or $1,000 to publish his stuff before he negotiated it down to not paying anything at all. And what really upsets me is that there is a possibility that this poor old man, you know, paid that much money to have this published, and it's just sad, you know, it's really sad. But so let's have a look at this opinion piece real quick. We've got the Bermuda Triangle mystery solved. So this person is, you know, trying to think of a solution as to what's going on with the Bermuda Triangle. I didn't even know that there was a mystery, but apparently things keep disappearing there. When I downloaded the paper, I think what really made me laugh at first, not in a bad way, of course, it's an opinion piece, it doesn't have to be long, but this was, if we go back to the 100%, the actual size that I saw it, and then I scrolled down and it was just absolutely nothing, and it's just like, it sent me. So this person claims that they've got a reason for why the Bermuda Triangle acts the way it does. I don't really know what goes on. It's something to do with apparently methane. The swamp gas in brackets absolutely sent me when I first read this paper. I laughed at that so much. I don't know why. I'm really sorry. But one really good thing that I found with this is that the typesetting, so the notation, the chemical notation, is really nicely done. Like, this is, you know, how you'd actually, like, write out your chemical reaction. So I think that was really nice as well. You know, we've got a nice introduction. It's a little bit bare bones, but, you know, that's fine. It's not a proper paper. And then, of course, the conclusion, we've got the same sort of thing, but, you know, it works as a conclusion. So I thought that was actually quite interesting. And, you know, for somebody who's just doing this for fun, I thought that was really sweet. But I really hope they didn't have to pay anything to publish this. to this journal. So, on the final thing, this person studies birds. I believe that's an ornithologist. But they published this paper as a complete joke, and you'll be able to tell that immediately. I promise you that. Just to sort of see if this publisher is legit, and of course they aren't, because they straight up immediately published it. For note, if you've never actually done publishing before, usually it takes months. I'll just let you know that. It takes months. Even the best papers, you know, if it's done well, it's really worth it, and you get high quality papers out of it. Clearly this isn't happening with this journal, allegedly, of course. But so this amazing scientist decided to test this publisher out and publish this really interesting paper on birds called What's the Deal with Birds? So I've kept his name and stuff. It's clearly a joke. He's definitely an amazing scientist as well, so no doubt about it, he's fine. We know this is a joke, and it's a great one. If we have a look at the abstract, I absolutely love this. Many people wonder, what's the deal with birds? This is a common query. Birds are pretty weird. I mean, they have feathers. What the f***? Most other animals don't have feathers. To investigate this issue, I looked at some birds. I looked at a woodpecker, a parrot, and a penguin. They were all pretty weird. In conclusion, we may never know the deal with birds, but further study is warranted. I love this paper so much. So I won't go through reading all of this. I highly recommend you read this in your spare time. You can find it. It has been taken off the journal website, of course, because they figured that it was it was sent in as a joke. I mean, of course, because we've got an actual person who has a PhD and, you know, knows how to write a paper, I don't actually have any comments with regards to the actual style and stuff. It's actually really okay for a joke paper. It's actually really nicely set out. I thought the eigenvalue of weird birds and WTF was quite interesting, because I have no clue what that is. In the results, they actually have a graph, which I was taught that you don't put graphs in the results. You put it in sort of the analysis section a little bit later in the discussion, but of course that's for physicists. It could be different for other people. So I really like this graph here. It's interesting that the quality is a little bit low. I think this might be the fact that maybe with the graph quality, it's actually a problem with the publisher itself rather than the people, you know, submitting their data and, you know, their writing. So actually that reflects really poorly on the journal, in my opinion, of course. But yeah, I really do like how he's plotted the deal. I have to admit, these birds were weird. I mean, the woodpecker was hopping around on a tree, smashing its bill into the wood. The parrot had a really big bill and was really noisy, and the penguin looked more like a fish. I like how they put the ethics in there, the data accessibility, funding by anonymous donations. Yeah, but what I really like were the acknowledgements slightly later. So we thank Big Bird from Sesame Street for comments on the manuscript. Several trained monkeys transcribed videos. I absolutely love this paper, and, you know, they've referenced things, of course, really well. But yeah, I just thought these were some really funny papers. Some sad with the opinion article as well, because, of course, I really hope that man didn't have to pay to have his opinion published on this allegedly predatory journal, in my opinion, of course. But I thought that was a really interesting look into sort of like, I guess, I don't want to say crackpot, but like quack papers that you can get on the internet. And yes, there are allegedly predatory publishers that will, of course, publish anything and take your money. And this may indeed be one of those. They have quite a few different journals as well. They've got like Ayurvedic medicine, yoga, biology, everything, you name it. And I haven't really checked all of them. There's quite a lot, which in and of itself is quite an alarming thing, because I've never heard of this journal as well, this publisher, and there's definitely a reason for that. But yeah, I think it's kind of interesting as well. There's some really key points I found with a couple of these papers, so specifically the Hubble's constant, and with a couple other sort of physics ones that, with some things more related to physics, of course, and that things aren't proofread. Clearly, we've got typos, poor notation and formatting, especially with equations, which you can do very easily with LaTeX, which a lot of people use to actually write up their papers, and you get loads of templates for actual publishers themselves which are free on there. So there's really no excuse as to why this should happen. And of course, you've just got a lot of repetitive stuff, and I know me talking, I'm very repetitive as well, so I'm a bit of a hypocrite here, but for an actual paper that should be more refined than this, it's really sad to see that these people are clearly getting played into thinking that they're doing actual science, which they're not, allegedly. And it's just sad that we have to see this, but we can all learn a little bit as well, and in a way have a little bit of a laugh, but be nice as well. So that concludes this video. I've realized it's gone really dark outside, so hopefully you guys can actually still see me over here, but I'll see you very soon.